Geeks and Zombies, I'm Drake, and today I'll be reviewing Deadpool Kills Marvel Universe, and if this kind of sounds familiar, I actually have done this before. I was thinking about maybe just redoing the whole thing, but I decided that I didn't. Sorry. But I decided that I actually didn't want to. So, yeah, let's just start off with 3 and 4. So we see that Deadpool is still kind of working his way through the whole Marvel Universe, and he's killed the villains, like Green Goblin and Venom. And he's killed a couple of the heroes too, so we move on. He's in this room with Professor X, and he's kind of talking to Professor X about how, like, he has captured some of his students, and how basically he's just going to end up killing the whole Marvel Universe. And he's trying to get Professor X to lure his, basically the X-Men into his trap by calling them towards where he is. And of course he really doesn't at first, but Deadpool stabs him in the leg, and of course then he kind of has no choice except for to go, alright, yeah, I'm going to call them, and it lures him into a trap where Pixie, Cyclops, and it's just Pixie, Cyclops, and a couple of the other X-Men. They walk in, they walk to this trap. I guess they trip a wire or whatever, and this stuff, kind of this big, like, round kind of orb stuff, forms around Cyclops' head, and he can't really breathe, and so he tries to laser it off, but it's kind of so powerful that it can withstand the laser, but eventually it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it pops, and obviously it blows up Cyclops, and it blows up everyone else around them. And then Deadpool ends up just killing Professor X, of course, because Professor X just tries to stop him. And so we see what he's doing to all the other X-Men villains, or not villains, but just the other X-Men. Colossus is in this room where the room is constantly getting smaller and smaller to try to squish him. And Kitty Pryde is in this room where it's like a funhouse mirror, so whenever she devolves to something or whatever, she basically is still in the same place. And finally we see that Wolverine kind of comes into the picture to try to stop everything. So he's going and looking for Deadpool, but then he sees that his 2 kids are constantly, like, they're being lit on fire, and once they start healing a little bit, they get lit in fire again. And so it really kind of just pisses Wolverine off. And then eventually Wolverine and Deadpool have a big fight where obviously because Deadpool has a carbonadium sword, he kind of just wrecks Wolverine. And so after all that, we see that Taskmaster, who has been trying to find Deadpool all this time, he's been trying to find Deadpool this whole entire time because Aunt May and Mary Jane gave him money to go find Deadpool because he killed Spider-Man. And so he's still trying to find him. He kind of sees all the other havoc that he's left on the people, and then that kind of concludes with number 3, and we move on to number 4, where we see that a lot of all the villains and superheroes like Fury, Fisk, or Kingpin, depending on what you want to call him, and he's killed Daredevil, he's killed a bunch of the superheroes, and so everyone is kind of just about to jump off this giant building because they don't want to be gruesomely killed by Deadpool. And so amidst all this chaos and anarchy that some of the heroes are fighting and some of the villains are fighting, and some of them are just going to jump off a building, we see that a Punisher is trying to also kill Deadpool to kind of stop everything, and he sees Deadpool in this window, so he shoots him in the head, and he walks over and reveals, or kind of takes off his mask, and he finds out that it's Puppet Master. And so from behind, Deadpool stabs Punisher and ends up killing him, and then we see that Deadpool kind of goes off, and we see that Taskmaster is still trying to find Deadpool, and eventually Deadpool goes to kind of kill Swamp Thing. So he goes obviously in this swampy area or whatever. And we see that this is when finally Deadpool and Taskmaster meet up, and they start fighting. Of course, no, whatever. They start fighting, and of course, Taskmaster kind of gets his butt kicked because Taskmaster's whole thing is about copying other people's moves, and Deadpool's is about being so unpredictable and so random and everything. And so eventually, between their fight, they kind of go at a crossroads where they kind of just like push each other back a little bit, and eventually Swamp Thing comes out and ends up killing Taskmaster for Deadpool. And then eventually Deadpool starts talking to Swamp Thing like, oh, why'd you do this? Why'd you help me? I mean, I'm still probably going to end up killing you. And eventually Swamp Thing kind of explodes or whatever, almost like he's teleporting Deadpool, and we see that Deadpool ends up in like the writer's room of like where they're planning the comic book about this whole thing. And you see the writers kind of having ideas about how Deadpool is going to kill other superheroes. And we see that the ending is basically Deadpool is going to end up killing the writers of Deadpool. And a couple people, I kind of did this a short kind of thing because I was like, first off, I do like the comic book, but I feel like I wanted to address something. And this hasn't happened that often, but I feel like people will read this, and this was not a liked comic book. Because people read this and were like, oh no, like, how dare you have my favorite superhero be killed in a gruesome way, or even like, people were like, oh no, like, this character would obviously kill Deadpool, or this character would do this, and this character would do this, and like, how could he possibly kill all these characters like Silver Surfer, and all these people, and they're kind of missing the point of this whole comic book. And I feel like the whole point is actually just that, and Deadpool really kind of mentions this throughout the whole comic book, and the ending is kind of a nod to what the whole story is about, and it's about the fact that Deadpool is kind of talking about how he thinks that people just want to see him kill everything, and they're not going to be happy until every single thing is dead and killed by Deadpool, and that he kind of does everything. And so that's why he kind of killed the writers, because he's like, yeah, no, I can't keep doing this. All they want from me is for me to kill and murder, so I might as well kill and murder everyone. And it's actually kind of ironic, because the whole point is to prove that Deadpool doesn't need to kill everyone, and this was such a backlash that, because he did end up killing everyone, and so that's kind of funny. Now, on to rating. If I had to rate this 1 through 10, like I always do, I'm going to give it a 5. That's kind of it's kind of in the middle, because I did like it. I think it has some weird moments, and even myself, I'm like, yeah, some of these characters could obviously take down Deadpool, and sure, Deadpool is unkillable, but you can still take him down and put him in handcuffs and everything like that. But again, I try not to think about it. I still enjoy it because it's not canon, and I have fun with it. But again, it is enjoyable. Some of the imagery is kind of harsh, like the whole thing with Wolverine's kids being burned, and once they try to heal back, they're being burned again. Like, the artist actually did a really good job on that, showing like whoever the artist was showed like all like the veins and goriness of everything, kind of like I kind of want to compare it to Walking Dead, because it's the same thing where it shows everything, right? They don't cut away, they don't hide anything, or they make it extra gory, and they really kind of, again, like I already said, they show everything. And so, if you are kind of a kid and you think this stuff would gross you out, then don't watch it. Read it. If you're totally fine with it, then again, read it. That's whatever. That's kind of a fair warning. It even says it on the comic book that it's advisory to parents, and like, yeah, don't just give this to your kid and thinking it's a cool Deadpool comic book. But again, yeah, I like it. I think people should kind of stop complaining about it and realize that it's just a harmful comic book, right? It's kind of it's a what if story. I think that's basically it. I'll talk to you guys later.